Hello and welcome to this FairPlay Investigations Team explanatory video of the NDL. Let me start off by saying this was not our choice to make this video. But we have to address the issue because a lot of confusion was created and politics seem to have the upper hand in a clear-cut case of mod use in a FairPlay league. Well, what's the issue? NDL is most invested in FairPlay, it has been since the beginning, and we chose a different approach to prove mod use. Until now, mostly the closet modders were exposed on Twitter by trolls or screenshots were sent by toxic clanmates who had a beef to settle. Well, this kind of evidence could very well be true. It's still very dangerous to base your opinion on a single screenshot which is mostly provided by the very people who are not fair play at all. Without proper investigations about circumstances or the source, all you have in the end is an opinion, and nobody should be convicted on an opinion alone. The NDL FairPlay Investigations team chose a different approach in Season 2. Instead of waiting on Bandwave, the NDL created a system which reviews the attacks used in Ward. And well, that makes perfect sense, because whatever software people use and whichever way they find to cheat the system, the only thing they can never hide is the actual attack. In October 2017, at the start of Season 2, the NDL FPiT launched a new way of investigating. There will always be ways to cheat the game, and although Supercell did a tremendous amount of work to prevent mods, a new way to mod is always looking around the corner. What the system basically does is look for an unfair practicing of an attack. If an attack is deemed suspicious, there are three very important steps we always take to judge the attack in an unbiased way. The things we record are the entire war log, and at what time was the base first attacked or scouted, how and when was it attacked previously, what information was gathered by the previous attacks, and who performed all the above attacks. Only when you have all that information the FairPlay system can get started. It's three very easy steps. Step 1 is the attack is viewed. Viewed and carefully viewed by 5 people, a minimum of 5 people. We always like a mix of people who watch TWC wars, who know about TWC wars, and we like people who have never seen a TWC war before. We like to have unbiased opinions by both sides of the spectrum of all players. So in the first step we look at discounts and we look at all previous attacks to look for predictability. Mostly the final attack contains elements which were predicted in previous attacks. If that's the case, this attack is just great but doesn't have anything to do with unfair practice and the case can be closed. But if the previous attacks don't reveal the necessary information or partial practice which is shown in the final attack, we can have a problem at hand. We must proceed to step 2. Step 2 is divide the attacks in bite-sized pieces. For instance, we take the Queen Walk alone, we take the funnel deployment alone, we take the royal deployment, we take the predictability of the troop direction, wall breaker deployment, troop deployment, spell deployment, and all other circumstances or styles of the attack. We discuss all parts separately and look for how they could be predicted, and in the end we take a vote on whether the combined issues are just an excellent attack or that attack has clear signs of unpredictable practice. If it is voted fair play, we close the case. If it is voted unpredictable, we inquire more information. We could ask clan leadership if this base was available in game for practice. If so, a whole lot of other questions come to mind, and the FairPlay Investigations team will address all issues concerning that base and will investigate if this practice was done in a way which was provided in game by Supercell. When and only when the practice cannot be explained by means of what Supercell provided, we start using the word mod, because mod software is the only way you can practice an attack outside of the parameters Supercell has set for us. So by now we had 2 voting rounds already, and the last and final step is step 3. In step 3 we build an exact replica of the base and we attack it ourselves. The point is not to triple the base. Let's make that absolutely clear. The point is to look at the separate elements of the attack and the predictability of that with practice or without practice. The questions we ask ourselves could be, what happens if we drop the queen 1 tile down? What happens if we deploy the funnel while building up? What happens if we deploy king 2 seconds later? And what happens to our walk direction? Can we replicate the wall breakers, and do they break that wall if they are deployed 1 tile to the left? What happens when a single loon is deployed a few tiles off, and is it possible to replicate the spell drops, and are they logical? And is this attack repeatable if we exchange only 1 troop or spell? All these questions and answers in itself are not indefinite proof of practice, but if a single attack contains several elements which can't be replicated or can't be predicted, and Supercell did not provide practice of the attack, you can be 99% sure this hit was practice by means outside of what Supercell provided. This was practice using mod software. Now we hear people say 99% sure. Well, that's not 100%. Well, the only fair answer is all other investigations we saw were 99% sure. Most evidence was provided by trolls, provided by people who hated each other. So you can never know for sure if the evidence is not faked. And by examining the attack, you cannot fake the evidence because the evidence is the attack itself. It makes perfect sense. What happened in the Marshall's Kiss case? Well, we examined the attacks and, well, Marshall's Kiss is a known clan and there's no doubt they can perform wars in a way only a very few clans can. They scored one of the first FairPlay perfect wars and later on even 2 perfect wars in a row. The FairPlay investigations team was in contact with Marshall's Kiss this whole time and on several occasions they visited Marshall's Kiss to review the attacks and record them. They have been doing this for about 2 months and all the attacks looked perfectly okay. Not even one attack would have passed the first round of the NDL FP system. And when the case of the Marshall's Kiss semi-finals was brought up, the first thing to notice was that 3 attacks were completely different from all we had seen in NDL in general, and all from Marshall's Kiss in particular. The attacks on number 2, 7 and 8 were completely different from all the other attacks we have seen. The FairPlay investigations team recorded all scouts, all previous attacks, the time frame, who did the attacks by a dip list, and recorded the entire war event log. Because this war was a high-profile war, the FairPlay investigations team reached out to an ambassador liaison and a staff liaison to strengthen up the team and called in 2 experienced investigators from another FairPlay league, which were both completely unaware of this war and unaware of Marshall's Kiss performance in NDL. We also added an outside consultants to prevent bias in any way. The FairPlay investigation team took 10 days with 7 people to investigate, wrote up the findings for staff, and staff shared the information to the admins from the other leagues to inform them. Unfortunately, a French admin who is part of the Marshall's family chose the interests of his clan above his responsibility to FairPlay and shared this private doc to Marshall's Kiss. Instead of removing the closets, they made only a small part of the information public and tried to convince the community they were removed because of scouts. Which is of course absolutely ridiculous. Of course we can't reveal all the information about how we catch closets, but we never had a case with such overwhelming amount of evidence as the Marshall's Kiss case. As said, the attacks were reviewed and voted upon almost unanimously, and 3 attacks stood out completely of all the other attacks in war and all attacks in previous wars. And those 3 attacks alone had very different scouts than all other attacks. Instead of looking for traps, these scouts performed a plan which was nearly impossible to do without practice and contained elements which could only have been practiced before the scout. Something not provided in the events log, and the bases were not built for FC in-game. The hits which were performed after the scouts could not improve the original plan. The eventual successful triples contained elements which were unpredictable from the scout, and we were unable to repeat without proper practice, and troop deployment was narrowed down to tenths of a second and 1 tile only to make this hit successful. But the cherry on the cake was the evidence found on the private server which was built during the war. The base stayed up there for days and was only deleted when Marshall's Kiss was informed this hit was under investigation. We double-checked the presence of the evidence and ruled out any possibility of this evidence being faked. This base was built for this war to practice upon on the private server, and Marshall's Kiss players Hugo Stiglitz and Anonymous are banned for closet modding. We are very sorry, but Marshall's Kiss left us no other choice but to explain what factually happened, and we will not tolerate closets in the NDL. I'm out, and come on, keep it fair.